So this article is about what's happening today. They're voting to remove this woman who is a Republican, and basically from the way I saw it is Liz Cheney is her name. She's a Republican and she's expected to be removed from the Republican leadership role as the party unites behind Trump. And so she would not support the rhetoric or all of the beliefs that the election was stolen. And because she wouldn't support that, there are some people who want her to be removed. And so I will say this, and I'll be honest that I believe she's doing the right thing. I'm not a Republican, but in her defense for what she's doing, just soundly and sanely, I believe that she is doing the right thing. She is basically following the rule of law, and she's also um, doing the right thing because she supports what she's doing in the rule within the rule of law. And it basically states in the article that Liz Cheney is expected to be ousted from her senior position in the Republican leadership on Wednesday in a signal that the party is uniting aggressively behind Donald Trump. And so she isn't completely behind that whole uh, theory or philosophy or conspiracy, however you want to look at this, behind Donald Trump. And so Ms. Cheney, who is 54, the daughter of the former Vice President Dick Cheney, has become a lightning rod for Republican division as she repeatedly criticized the former president. And I support her decision. And I'm saying that. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. This might not be the channel for you, because I'm also going to support another person who isn't a Republican who also is doing something. And he's also been in threat of being ousted from his position, which I support him as well. So, she was one of only a handful of Republicans in Congress who voted to impeach Donald Trump in January and believes the party is at a turning point. Last week, she called for Republicans to reject Mr. Trump's crusade to reverse the legal outcome of the election. So Ms. Cheney serves as chair of the House Republican Conference, making her the third most important party figure in the House of Representatives. She is expected to be voted out and replaced by Elise Stefanik, who is 36, a congresswoman who has been enthusiastically endorsed by Mr. Trump. And so, in a letter to the party colleagues, now you hear how this is sounding? It's almost like, oh, because you won't vote for Trump or you won't back Trump and support Trump, we're mad at you and we're going to kick you out. That's the way it sounds, and that's the way we're hearing it. And it's so immature of this group to do this. That's the way it looks. I'm sorry, I have to call it like it looks. It looks like a group of whiny babies who don't want to follow the law, who don't want to follow the way things are supposed to be run, and they're mad because somebody else is stepping up to the plate and they want to get rid of them because they don't want to do the right thing. That's what it looks like. That's what it's looking like. So Ms. Cheney serves as chair of the House of Republican Conference, making her the third most important party figure in the House of Representatives. She is expected to be voted out and replaced by this woman here, Elise Stefanik, who is 36. So she's supported by Donald Trump. And so this is Miss Stefanik. She rose to national prominence when she offered an impassioned defense of Mr. Donald Trump during his first impeachment trial in 2019. Okay, so this was her right here, pictured here. So in a letter to the party colleagues, it's sort of like there's this loyalty to Donald Trump, and if you are not a part of that club, you're kicked out. That's what this is feeling like. And so Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader in the House, said if we are to succeed in stopping the radical Democratic agenda from destroying our country, these internal conflicts need to be resolved. So this was in a letter to party colleagues Kevin McCarthy. So it's clear that we need to make change. So each day spent in uh, litigating the past is one day less that we have to seize on the future. And so, in the defense of the whole circumstance, it's true. It is true. They're wasting time doing this instead of doing the work that they have been assigned are to do, because they are fighting amongst each other within in that party over something that is already over with. And so it's clear that we need to make a change. So each day spent, like they said, it's just, they're not able to really work on what's important, the future. So he told colleagues to anticipate a vote to recall Ms. Cheney on Wednesday. And so moderate Republicans in Congress objected to the move, arguing that it would alienate independent voters as the party tries to recapture control of the House and Senate in a midterm election next year. So Mitt Romney and the Republican senator of Utah said expelling Liz Cheney from leadership won't gain one additional voter, but it will cost us quite a few. And so I don't I don't disagree with that statement. I believe Mitt Romney is right about his statement, because fighting within is not going to make uh, a, a bit of difference for going forward. But it is gonna make a difference in going forward in terms of the destruction of that party, because you're gonna basically turn voters away. They're gonna be turned off because you got a group of people acting like whiny babies, and they want to just keep rehashing the past instead of moving stronger to go forward and trying to be a little more professional about the whole situation. So that's my take on that. So Joni Ernest, the Republican senator from Iowa, said that cancel culture is cancel culture no matter how you look at it. And unfortunately, I think that there are those that are trying to silence others in this party. So Ms. Stefanik rose to national prominence when she offered an impassioned defense of Donald Trump during the first impeachment trial in 2019. At the time, Mr. Trump said, "A star is born." So she calls Trump our president rather than former president, and has backed his claims about voting fraud. And so this is where all this infighting comes in with this particular party. So ahead of the vote on Miss Cheney, Mr. Trump said Miss Stefanik, knows how to win, which is what we need. So Miss Stefanik was first elected to represent New York in 2014 as a moderate Republican, so she avoided even saying Mr. Trump's name publicly during the 2016 campaign before later backing him. So some Republicans have expressed doubts in all of that and pointed out that her voting record is much less conservative than Ms. Cheney's record. One fellow Republican congressman called it atrocious. And so, meanwhile, Larry Hogan, the Republican governor of Maryland, said that the party had become a circular firing squad. And so he said, you have to swear fealty to the dear leader, or you get kicked out of the party. Exactly, that's what I was saying. Basically, it's like a group of whiny babies, and if you don't appease to them and you don't please and bow to their feet, you're kicked out of that club. You're not in the in club anymore. You're out. And so that's the way this is looking, and it's not looking good for this party at all. So that's that on that situation right there. Now I'm going to move on to another party, which is the Democratic Party, having to do with Gavin Newsom. So I don't know if you heard that there's supposed to be a surplus of money that was basically it talks about California Governor Gavin Newsom's proposes 12 billion to House. So this was 1 hour ago, and then it mentioned something about the drought emergency, but this was what I was looking at. There's a huge budget surplus, and this comes right before they're trying to recall and oust Gavin Newsom because of the restrictions that he put during the COVID emergency, and also they wanted to kind of blame homelessness issues on him, saying that he didn't fulfill promises and certain things that they claim he was trying to say he was going to do, or it didn't happen fast enough. Now, this is my thing. I feel like some of these homeless people that were already here, this happened before he even got elected. And then some of this growing homelessness happened that we have now is happening because of we already had a growing homelessness that was happening because of the high rents, the gentrification, that was what was going on, and people being kind of displaced from areas because they were not able to move in places that are affordable, so they basically were being priced out of their housing. The other issue that's happening was the COVID crisis, and so those none of those things are his fault. So this is what I'm saying. I know that he had promised that they were going to try to. There's been other people before him that have made promises, and they weren't able to fulfill all of those promises. They did what they could. Um, and so I think the homeless thing is something where you try to remedy the problem as much as possible, and every person that comes in that those positions tries to do everything they can to remedy the problem. But the problem is so big that it's even bigger than they are, because it's the issue of not having a place to stay, or not having, there's everybody's situation is case by case. There could be some people that are electively homeless because they don't want, they don't want to be in shelters. They don't want to be in homeless shelters because there's rules to live in homeless shelters, that you can't, bring your drugs on the premises, or you can't bring your, whatever activity that the rules say you couldn't do. You can't do that. So some people elect to be outdoors because that they're able to do the drugs and access whatever that they're doing, that may be a substance abuse problem and other issues going on. Then there's the other end of it. You have people who have mental illnesses, and they need resource. They need to have somebody helping them so they can get access to certain resources for other needs that they have. Then you have people who maybe they lost their job, and or they're not making enough money to they got behind in their rent, and this was before COVID. They weren't making enough money, so they ended up into doing desperate things to get money. It could be criminal activity, or things that could be deemed as criminal activity, and it could be maybe things that are desperate activity. But somehow they got behind in their rent, because it's not so much just them, it's because these apartments in the metropolitan cities are so expensive, and the pay that people are making with these essential jobs is not up to the livable wage. And so that's an issue right there that needs to be addressed. And those are the problems that are happening, that are causing people to end up outdoors. The other issue is you also have not enough, there's not enough housing, and now people are doubling up living together, and now you have this COVID crisis, which that really hit people really hard. Even now you have a lot of evictions that were happening, so that's gonna, I would bet that's gonna make the homeless issue grow even more. Now, homelessness is on different levels. You have people that you see that are out in tents, and we see a lot of that. But what about the homeless people that are functionally homeless that you don't see? They're living out of hotels and motels. They're living in RVs. They're living, in maybe in squalor somewhere. There maybe they are in an apartment and they're about to be evicted and they stay there to buy some time before they have to use their car as their house or their place to live. They're sleeping out of their cars. You have people who maybe they're couch surfing, they're going from place to place or doing whatever they can. They bop from place to place. It's unstable. They're not necessarily living in tents, but they're outdoors. They don't have one stable place to live. So they live from relative to relative or friend to friend, or they live from motel to motel. So there's a whole facet of things going on that people are not really aware of when it comes to the homeless crisis. And then you have these veteran people who maybe something happened to them in the war. There's mental abuse, there's substance abuse, they're out on the street, they're pushing a basket. They may be functional enough to feed themselves and maybe put on some clothes, but they have substance problems that they can't kick the habit, or they don't want to kick the habit. So they just stay in the street. And then think about it, based on the weather elements, some people live in colder environment and they move to Southern California or a place where the weather is warm and it's easier. It may be more they may be more able to survive this weather, the weather patterns, to be homeless outdoors rather than be on the East Coast and be homeless. And so, it could be a bunch of things going on. And I did hear that some people were saying, and I don't know how true this is, but I wouldn't be surprised by it, that there were purpose. And I did hear Donald Trump saying that he was upset because of the sanctuary cities that some people were proclaiming. They had even saying they were going to help people that were coming from other countries that might have been immigrant status, and they were going to put them in churches. You might have people in those situations and they end up being homeless. And so, because some cities were saying we're going to have these cities to be sanctuary cities, and they were going against, when Trump was the president, going against what he was saying, and he was even trying to criminalize it. There were people saying that he was saying, and he also, I heard there were people saying that they may have got people, loaded them up on buses and dumped them in places in the sanctuary cities just to prove a point that, okay, here are these people that you want to help with refuge. Okay, here we're gonna leave them. We're gonna dump them on you. And so now you got all these people, but they don't have enough places to go seek shelter. So they wind up outdoors or living, hand in mouth from place to place, motel to motel, whatever. Maybe they're desperate, and so there's a whole bunch of things that is going on with the homeless thing. More than, I think it's a lot bigger than what people think it is. It isn't just only the people that are in tents. I mean, we can see a lot more of that now, because even when I was younger, I noticed there were homeless people, but not to this magnitude to where it has grown. I feel like over the years it has grown. This is not something that one governor caused. And so by them trying to oust Governor Gavin Newsom, that is irrelevant. I really don't believe it is his fault that a lot of these things, I believe he's tried to do the best that he could. Now, I did hear and see that he was at a restaurant and he didn't have a mask on, and this was earlier on, I think, in the COVID crisis, and a lot of people were focused on that. But think about it, there were a lot of people I've seen who weren't wearing masks in other circumstances, and a lot of people who hadn't had shots or are didn't maybe they minute they have a mask on, the next minute they don't have a mask on. There's so many different things. I don't believe that he caused the homeless crisis. I just don't believe, I don't buy that. The other thing is that nobody is perfect, and I feel like he I know people are going to say, "Oh, it's a political stunt," because of the surplus of money that he's supposed to do, where he's supposed to give money to a lot of people who are like, I believe, earning 75,000 a year, and people that are, it basically laid that whole scenario out, that there was this surplus of money. So it's supposed to be here. It's a huge budget surplus. And so I don't know if this is actually going to work, because I can't remember all of the things to say exactly how I heard it, but I believe it plays here. But it says NPR has it. So it says that Alyssa Chang speaks to Governor Gavin Newsom. It's about a stimulus who's facing a recall election about the economic recovery plan that would give $600 stimulus checks to more Californians. And so it basically talks about it there. So I won't go into all of that. You can look it up at your own time, but also he's dealing with this drought emergency. But what I wanted to say is that I support him actually. I don't think he's the one that we should be recalling. That's just my feelings. I know there's some people that hated him. Um, that I mean really hated him. Um, I don't think he's the cause of everything. I really believe that some of those people that were doing that, a lot of the hate, it was Governor Gavin Newsom recall. Supporters have enough valid signatures for an election recall. They had all this going on. Declares drought emergency for 39 California counties, and he proposes a new funding for the homeless. And so he's trying to do, I feel like this was 3 hours ago, because they were blaming him for this, and I feel like he's trying to do everything in his power to really try to resolve the issues that are really needed here. um, I just feel like he should not be recalled. He should not. They should not kick him out. So he's getting a California. Who's getting a California stimulus check? Here's a look at who qualifies in his plan, and so I guess this gives more of insight of what's supposed to happen. So Californians could be posed to receive the largest state tax rebate in American history, and Governor Gavin Newsom on Monday announced 100 billion dollars in California Comeback Plan is what it's called. That includes a stimulus check for 2/3 of the state of residence, and it is approved by the legislature. It will result in a $600 and $1,100 checks for families, and $1,600 for undocumented immigrant families as well, going out to millions of Californians. And so it says that, what does it say here? That Newsom is obliged to send the money to taxpayers that comply with 1979 bailout. No, not bailout, ballot. I read that wrong. It's a ballot initiative that seeks to restrict government spending. So that law, known as the GAN limit, it has only resulted in taxpayers getting refunds on one previous occasion. So this year is a windfall for the tax revenue from the high income earners, created conditions for a $75 billion state budget surplus. Okay, and so that's where the money comes from, because people were like, well, where's all this money coming from? And so the checks that Newsom wants to distribute. So here's a look at who would qualify. So middle income earners, people making between 30,000 and 75,000 a year. That's what I was trying to say. I couldn't remember everything. A year will qualify for the rebate, according to H.D. Palmer, spokesman for California Department of Finance, and Palmer said that $75,000 a hard cap is the hard cap for earners to receive the rebate, whether you're a single filer or married filing jointly. So if a married couple joint income is 75,000 or less, they are eligible for a stimulus. And so it is more than $75,000 that they are not. Okay, Palmer said. So some lower income households with children will also benefit in this. So earlier this year, state lawmakers approved a package that was sent in $600 checks to low income families making less than $30,000 a year. People who receive that check won't get another $600, but if they have dependent children, they could be eligible for $500. So undocumented immigrants, unlike the federal stimulus aid, undocumented immigrants and their family will be eligible to receive a state tax rebate. So, in fact, undocumented immigrants with dependent children will be eligible for $1,000 for their family checks, double what the other California families will receive in order to make up for the lack of support at the federal level, according to Finance Director Keely Bolser. And so that is what is proposed that is going to go down the pike real soon. So anyway, if it's supposed to happen really soon. So that's basically what he's put out. I just don't. I really think that this group, the groups that were trying to get rid of Gavin Newsom, I think that was one plot to try to get. This is out of the Sacramento Bee, and so this, who was this that did this one? This is Andrew Sheeler, um, is the person that wrote this article. And the person that wrote about Liz Cheney is Nick Allen. And so these articles, there are two different sides of the party, but I support both of them in their defense of how they feel about their party and what they're trying to do. They've both been in a precarious situation where they've been in threat of their positions, um, simply because you got a group of people who, if things don't go the way they want it, they want to kick people out. So that's pretty much how this article is going to go, or these articles for me are going. So what do you think about this? I know some people hated Gavin Newsom. I really don't think it was all his fault. I know that everybody is not perfect. I know people will make mistakes and people do things, and then there's other people that have made a lot of, maybe not so great decisions or choices during the pandemic. But you got to give it to him. I feel like he is trying to do the best in his power to help California recover from a lot of the things that have happened during the COVID as much as he can. That's my feeling. Maybe somebody feels otherwise. I just feel like there were groups that were involved in trying to get rid of Gavin Newsom, and they weren't necessarily in the Democratic Party. I feel like they were like some of the groups that he was quoting earlier on when he was talking about or citing that there were these groups, these factions, these conspirators that were basically trying to oust him from his position. And the same people, I feel like, trying to get rid of Gavin, I feel like it's the same type of individuals, and I know it's a different party. They don't want her to tell the truth. They don't want her to follow the rule of law. I feel like they're trying to get rid of Liz Cheney because she simply won't back down on her personal, not only her personal view, but also, and it's not even, it's this the rule of law. It's not a personal thing either. It is and it isn't. It is in the sense that she wants to follow the rule of law, and that more personal, and it's near and dear to anyone that wants to do things the right way. But the other thing is that I just feel like there's a group that, if they, like the cancel culture, if they don't want somebody because of what they want to support Trump and all of these things, like, if you don't follow that group, they don't want to hear what you have to say. They want to kick you out, and that, I feel like that's what they're doing to this woman, and it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. And I'm not a Republican, but I feel like I support her belief in what following the rule of law. And I'm gonna say that again. And if you don't like it, that's too bad. But if I was in this party, I would support her. I would support her. If you want to do things the diplomatic way and you want to do things the right way, I would support her views quicker than I would anyone else. This other lady who's like a loyal supporter of Trump. I mean, hey, you gotta be honest. This lady, I gotta give it to her. Even if she's getting removed, she's not backing down from what and that's a strong personality. And those are the people that you want to keep in a party if you think about it. But anyway, having said this, I'm gonna let this video go. This is what I feel about this, here. And what's crazy is that they bring another woman in because see, they were quick to do that because they didn't want people to think, oh, we're getting rid of her because she's a woman. So they found another woman that is oppositional to this woman's view that supports Donald Trump. So that's the other thing I think that this group was trying to do. They were like, oh, we can't get rid of her and replace her with a man because then they'll say we just got rid of her because she was a woman. So we have to get another woman that supports our views. And so that's really wrong. That's wrong. So I really do. I hope they do the right thing, but if they don't, I wouldn't blame voters that if they were a part of this group decided not to be a part of it anymore if they got rid of this woman because it is so wrong to do this and it shows what the rest of the group is about. And Mitt Romney is right. He's supportive of her as well. And so if you want to do things the right way, then do it the right way. But don't do this. Anyway, having said that, I'm going to let this video go. Thanks for listening.